Hey, there you are.
Cool. I love how like I
Wow.
selected the same thing 3 times and I guess that worked.
Modern technology is supposed to save us, man. This is crazy.
Anyway, my opening comment was nice shirt. I'm glad I didn't wear the same one. I have exactly that same shirt and I'm glad I did. I'm wearing my Eon Flux long
Hey, there
sleeve.
you go. Perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
No, see, I got a bunch of different ones because we're running like a sale on like their final tour
Oh,
shirts.
I know. My girlfriend took care of me for my birthday this
Yeah,
year. So,
same here. I just
yeah.
looked it up. I was like, all right, they're all on sale. Let's grab them. So,
Yeah.
yep.
No. Yeah. It was actually it was because the first part of the farewell tour at the beginning of 2023, they had like all the get this shit out of here
Yep.
sale.
Mm-hmm.
And she got me that, and then one of the other with the blue design.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
then when they did their second half of the farewell tour, which I actually was able to catch
That's
two of
awesome.
the shows.
Good for you.
I had to buy more merch at that shit
Of
too.
course. Yeah, you can't go without. I mean, come on. It's skinny puppy. It's like I'll take what I can while I can get it. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, because you never know when it's going to be over. And like I always love when a band like ends on their own terms.
that's
They and like them, 40-year run, like untouchable,
oh
and but then we have David Lynch just stolen from us this week.
yeah, what? Oh my God. That it's been a weird week. Because I was gonna ask you about the LA fires and everything going on, but it's like all of a sudden everything shifts from David Lynch to TikTok and all this other crap. It's just like so
Well,
what's
yeah.
with LA wise, I mean, is there any other updates or anything that we should spread or any awareness or anything?
I mean, just keep sharing the donation
Okay.
stuff, but obviously verify the donation stuff before you.
Okay.
I shared something on my stories, a fundraiser that our friends Contra Cult
Hmm.
um, are doing. And so I linked that in our profile on Instagram, and then we donated to it and sent shared that yesterday. So that one's verified. That one's good to go. Our buddy Travis from Contra Cult, like wouldn't share that stuff if it wasn't verified. So, but pretty much like yeah, the Palisades is still going. I know that it's not like they couldn't really contain it as much as they just like it just ran. It's running its course. Altadena is toast.
Hmm.
That city is pretty much gone. It's going to have to get rebuilt entirely from the ground up, and that's a more marginalized neighborhood. It just sucks. This whole thing sucks. I mean, this is still going on, and I mean, honestly, the smoke is what they're saying. Like, this isn't verified, but what they're saying is that the smoke may have contributed to David Lynch's death because he announced back in October
Yeah, I knew
that
he
he
had.
had emphysema and then he was feeling good and then he was finishing up some projects and he had a Netflix series in the works.
Right.
And so that's never going to see the light of day. But the smoke inhalation that he was subjected to in a short amount of time that he was all of LA is like blanketed in this toxic
Yeah.
cloud right now, you
Yeah.
know,
That's so
and the
bad.
ash too. So,
Yep.
but yeah, these last 2 weeks have been great, and then tomorrow's inauguration day, so I kind of
Yeah.
just want to KMS here, you
I
know.
know, dude. It's like just it's like I don't know, it's just chaos. Like just right from the beginning of 2025, you're just like, all right, what else is next? It's just like what's gonna
Yeah,
happen now? Yeah. So what's your David Lynch story? Like, how did you get to find his work? Like what inspired you? What's your
it honestly, I can fairly say that it was a lifelong thing with me. I was pretty obsessed with horror movies from a young age. The earliest movies I have any memories of are the original Nightmare on Elm Street and Ghostbusters. I'm pretty sure I was like 1.5 when I saw Ghostbusters in theaters because it came out in like '84 and I
yeah.
was born in '83. I was pretty young.
Mhm.
And then, but I remember seeing Nightmare on Elm Street on home video, and I think that was my brother's fault. And then, it started a long string of night terrors to which my mom was like, okay, if you're obsessed with these horror movies, you have to understand like the make believe aspect of it. And so she sat me down and showed me like a behind the scenes thing. And I got really, really fascinated with the horror genre. And so there was this mom and pop video store we used to frequent all the time.
Mhm.
And I would just always just like look for whatever the new thing was, right? Or something I'd never seen before. And then this movie Eraserhead on the shelf, it just like I was like, what the hell is Eraserhead? I'm like a 9, 10-year-old kid. I'm like, what the hell is Eraserhead? And so I pull out, I'm like, my mom would just let me go to whatever section I want and pick out whatever I wanted for the weekend. For every Friday night, let's go to the mom and pop video store. And I remember pulling that off the shelf, and my mom's like, this doesn't look like something you're gonna like, but if that's what you want. And I remember just being like, what the fuck is this? And but being so fascinated by it. And then like it was right around the time that Twin Peaks was getting going on TV. And so I was watching that too. And like so much of it was over my head, but I was just fascinated by the quirky characters. And then of course, I just even at that age, I started paying attention to stuff like a film by, directed by, like that stuff was like important to me. Like is like obviously, like because I was a reader, so that's the author of this movie, just like this is the author of the book, and so I got really interested in his stuff from that point on. And then I remember pissing off all of my friends in junior high, high school. I was in I think high school when, yeah, 1997 is when Lost Highway came out. I remember renting that during a sleepover, and all my friends were pissed at me. They're like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, this is brilliant. I love it.
Amazing.
And subjecting so many friends to that throughout the years, and just being so fascinated with like trying to unlock the answers to everything in his movies.
Yeah.
And then of course, you backtrack to like all the stuff that you may have missed, like Elephant Man. I kind of skipped over it, but I did also find Elephant Man at a very young age because my mom had it taped on VHS
Wow.
from a collection that her mother had passed on to her of all stuff that she would bootleg off of Showtime or HBO in the early 80s.
We were like,
And that was in the collection of movies that my mom's mom had bootlegged. And I was like, oh, it's another David Lynch movie.
yeah.
So it kind of like, snowballed throughout my adolescence into my teenage years and stuff like that. Just being fascinated with like these really unconventional methods of storytelling. And then in 2006, when the LA premiere of Inland Empire happened, I went. I mean, actually, I skipped over the whole thing where I knew he was going to speak in at UCI in Irvine in Orange County, and he was going to speak there for one of the lectures about meditation and the brain science and all that stuff. And so I went and I got to meet him real quick.
That's cool.
And shortly thereafter, I started working on learning how to meditate, going to the a TM center and basically becoming like a student of the David Lynch Foundation.
Yeah.
Learning how to meditate, and it's been almost 20 years. But when the LA premiere of Inland Empire happened in 2006, I was like front row in the movie theater, and him, Laura Dern, and Justin Theroux were there. And I just went as soon as the movie was over and like the lights came up. They did a Q&A, and he started walking out towards the exit. And what I got up, like went right to him, and I was like, David, I just want to let you know I started meditating a few months ago, and it's already changing my life for the better. I want to thank you for everything you've done. And he just grabs my hand with like this iron grip, and he goes, "It's a gift." And then I was like,
Dude, that's so David Lynch.
yeah, no, it was so succinct, and then everybody was kind of swarming around. So I just said, thank you. The movie was great. I loved it. And then, him and Laura Dern and Justin Theroux were all getting swamped. So I'm like not much for close crowds even before COVID, but so I was just like, boom, out of there. But it was, a lot of people say this about like the artists that changed their lives, but he was one of the few true blue, genuine people who believed in everything they were saying. And he was just so good for the world. He was just good to everybody. And he did change a lot of people's lives, by introducing the meditation programs into inner city schools and stuff like that. So, I mean, I love his work, and I love the man, and it's just so fucking sad that he's gone now.
Dude, it's so sad. Is that was Lost Highway? Was that your introduction into like industrial music, Nine Inch Nails, or that come?
No, I was already very much a big Nine Inch Nails fan.
Okay.
I probably discovered Nine Inch Nails right around the age of like 12.
Oh, okay, cool.
Like a friend of mine had Pretty Hate Machine. I remember I was like 11, almost 12 years old when Downward Spiral came out, and that album was huge when it came out. It just blew up. And so I would say David Lynch is probably my introduction to industrial music because of all Eraserhead and
Oh yeah.
Alan Splet and all the stuff that he did. But I grew up with like a Terrible Lie and Head Like a Hole being played on K Rock all the time.
Yeah.
K-rock was like, in my introduction to a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
So I was very deep into like my love of Nine Inch Nails by the time Lost Highway came out. So when Lost Highway came out and it was like soundtrack produced by Trent Reznor with an original Nine Inch Nails song, I was like, holy shit, my 13-year-old. Actually, I was 14 when that came
Yeah.
out. So
Mhm.
by 14 years, I was just like, oh my God, this is everything I want. Like
Of
there's
course.
just like industrial gnarliness in the soundtrack. This movie doesn't make any sense to your average person. Like it wasn't my introduction. I'd say probably more so of a crash course in industrial music
Yes.
would
Yeah.
be The Crow.
Yeah.
The Crow
Oh yeah,
soundtrack,
absolutely. Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
that came out in '94. That whole soundtrack is like, a who's who of late
Legendary.
'80s, early '90s industrial
Oh,
kids.
it's
Such good shit.
it's so great. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's more or less my introduction.
That's awesome. And were you did that draw you to music, or when did that kind of come along? Were you just kind of dabbling in it, or did you like, what was your introduction into getting into music?
I mean, I grew up with my mom being like a singer in a bar band. Basically,
Mm.
she like singing cover bands and stuff like that, and she had all kinds of stories about who she partied with in the Hollywood Hills back in the day, which is like it's how much of it was true I'll never know, but I do have memories of her singing in bar bands and stuff like that, and
Cool.
having acoustic guitars around and having a mic stand and um like I don't have the greatest relationship with my mom, but she did some things right, and she definitely encouraged me to play music at a young age. So I picked up the guitar for the first time at the age of 10.
Mhm.
I'd say the first band I was ever like really obsessed with was probably Pink Floyd.
Oh, dude, I saw the poster behind you. I was like, what was the, yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
huge Floyd fan. Yeah.
Big,
Yeah.
big Pink Floyd
Big.
fan. I remember being a very, very young kid and Another Brick in the Wall just being like it was an easy song to remember. Like it has a very like, like lockstep kind of meter to it. And so as a kid, I was just like, hey, teacher, leave them kids, like that was like the first band I was like, damn, like this is fascinating. And then like Nirvana came out and I was just like, oh my God, child of divorce,
Yep.
not a great home life. This
Yep.
music was speaking to me. So Nirvana like was the reason I picked up the guitar in the first place. And so I've been playing since I was 10 years old.
Oh, nice.
Started on the acoustic and my mom was like, if you learn 3 songs and like 10 chords, then I'll buy you an electric. And she had to do it in a very short amount of time.
You're like, I'm gonna
So
get you, right?
yeah. So, and I started messing around with like drum programming, software in high school, probably around the ages of 15 or 16, and learning how to just dub deck to deck tapes. Like you want to bounce tracks and like like overdub again and again and again, just doing deck to deck stuff like that with a 4 track. Like that started stuff I was messing around with in high school.
Yeah.
So
What were
that's
you?
my beginnings.
No, you're good. What was the software that you first started out with?
Oh, in high school it was like all a bunch of freeware stuff, like early versions of Fruity Loops. When it was just basically like 16-step sequencing, and like you could input audio, but it was not like high definition or like not it didn't have a lot of dynamic range, stuff like that. And then there were like Cubase, a really early
Yeah, of
version of
course. Yeah.
a really early freeware version of Cubase that, without my mom's permission, I installed on her computer.
There you go. Yeah.
And
We've all
that
been
was
there. Yeah, I get it.
that was the first thing I ever really messed with. Um, but then, of course, like shortly after high school, I started like getting more into like mixers and 8-track tape recorders and digital recording. And then, slowly but surely, Pro Tools and Ableton Live became so much more accessible.
Right. Oh yeah. Did you have any other bands before Fact Pattern, or were you kind of dabbling in garage bands and crap like that?
Yeah, I played for a lot of other bands. I was a hired gun for this one band called Joy Must Remain. They seem to have come out of hiatus for a while. They were kind of put to bed for a while, but it was like a post-punk sort of band, very much in the spirit of Joy Division.
Oh yeah.
I didn't write anything for that band. I was brought in as a hired gun, and I played with them for probably about 3 or 4 years. I was also in this other band called Skitch with some good friends of mine from back in the day when I worked at Borders.
Oh yeah. I
Um,
used to the Borders. Yeah.
Actually, when I worked at Borders in the early 2000s, I met two people who are like my closest friends right now. And one of them, my friend Chris, he and I would start a band called Cracked Knowledge.
Hmm.
And we were just like a really weird instrumental art rock kind of band, all instrumental. There were some recordings that had vocalists on it that were, like just this girl or that girl. Because we were
Right.
so adamant in those days to have a female singer. But we had that band for a while. It fell apart. Then I had Skitch, which also had Chris and his wife Sarah in it. She was the singer. He ended up being the drummer. We played around for like 4 or 5 years. That it just kind of um, went away when they had a kid. But I'm still really good friends with both of them, and I actually still make music with him.
Yeah.
We've done some film scores together. So I've had a few projects here and there. Fact Pattern is the first thing to like really actually do anything, though. Actually, Joy Must Remain could have gone somewhere, but it wasn't my project, so I wasn't the one running it.
No, I get it. Did like what was like you got into like guitars and stuff and then started getting industrial? What was like your first like synthesizer or MIDI controller, whatever you picked up and was like, oh, okay, this is starting to make sense now.
For a long time, it was all just like point and click,
Oh,
because like I started off with the
okay.
step sequencers,
Mhm.
either in software or in the hardware,
Yeah.
where it didn't have like a full range of octaves.
Okay.
It was like step sequencing the notes.
Okay.
Messed around with a lot of Roland machines in the early days, but like most of my early beginnings were software, where it was just step sequencing. But the first synth that I bought was like some Yamaha thing. I don't even remember what the model name was, but I bought it at a pawn shop for like $150. And it had some cool built-in sounds. And then it also had a MIDI out. So that's when I actually was able to start, okay, I can actually like play stuff on this keyboard that triggers software.
Mhm.
And that was probably like around 2002.
Yeah.
That was the first thing. I don't even remember what that model name was. I
Okay,
have
no, it's no
no
big deal.
idea.
I get it. Yeah,
But
okay.
eventually, you're like, okay, I'm gonna invest in a nice MIDI controller, you know. So I've had a nice M Audio one for many years now. That
Yeah, M audio is good quality, man.
it's a sturdy piece
Lasted
of equipment.
forever for me. Yeah, I get
Yeah,
it.
I've played shows with that thing. It's moved from this studio to that studio. It's banged, and it is a tank,
Yeah.
and it's just a MIDI controller.
It's the,
You
it's the
know?
Nokia. It's the Nokia of MIDI controller. It just lasts forever.
Yeah, those M Audio Axioms, man. Those things are built tough.
They are built tough. They're for they must have like saw Trent Reznor smashing up synthesizers and like, okay, well, we need to step up our game and make sure we have quality ones that won't break or anything. So
Seriously,
yeah.
seriously. I also used to have a Monome. I'm not familiar. I'm sure if you're familiar with that
Oh yeah.
brand.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I had a Monome for many years. I remember getting obsessed with that company when I
Mhm.
first discovered them in like I think like 2007.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's such like a hard thing to like get one of their pieces of equipment, at least at the time, because it was like this guy and his wife, and they manufacture only so many at a time.
Oh
And
yeah.
you get on a waiting list, and they would send you an email. It's like, okay, auctions at this time.
Mhm.
And I remember I missed the auction. And I emailed the guy, and he's like, "Don't worry, I got you. We have a few spares. Like, give me your mailing address and just PayPal me this amount, and we're good." And I was like, this was like the holy grail of MIDI controllers to me, because like there's so many weird things you could do with it. Just like this little 8x8 square with one USB cable out the back of it. And eventually the software for that became outdated. And when I had to upgrade my system, I'm like, I'm not going to run a legacy system just for this MIDI controller. So there are plenty of people in LA who collect those, and I sold that thing off, but I kind of still miss it.
Yep.
Like that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like just pulling ideas out of nothing that you you
Mhm.
you would not think of just on a normal scale,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know.
Fantastic. When did you start being like writing lyrics and being able to get comfortable enough to sing? And what was your draw of inspiration?
I guess I could say I probably started writing lyrics at a very young age, but it's all just crap,
Yeah.
it's all just crap. Like
It's
learning to
sappy
write
teenage music.
poetry,
Yeah. Yep. I get it.
learning to write poetry and just like embracing the cringe of it all, filling
Hmm.
notebooks
Yep.
throughout
Through it.
adolescence and teenage years, and then eventually the more life experiences and the more well read you become, hopefully anyway, more books you read, the more exposed to art you are, and the more broad your vocabulary becomes. You get more comfortable with it. And I think that probably didn't happen for me until like my late 20s, where I was like, I'm really confident in the lyrics I write and the melodies I can write. I've always sang a little bit, but actually like being like the frontman singer and singing and playing guitar again didn't really happen until my late 20s, and I don't really feel like I got very good at it until my early 30s, and I'm 41 now.
Yep.
So I'd say some of my biggest inspirations on like looking at how people carry themselves when they're doing the that dual duty like that would be like Trent Reznor. I really loved watching Aaron Turner from the band Isis.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the way he carried himself on stage, like in switching between the harsh vocals and the clean vocals. Like I saw that band like 7 or 8 times, and they were always phenomenal live. And just like the way he was, and I was like, okay, there's almost like a posture to it, and like a mentality that you lock into, especially if your vocal melodies are complicated and not congruent with the riff you're playing, because it's pretty easy to like sing and play guitar if you're sticking to like a da, 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 like the ball bouncing on the lyrics the whole
Yeah.
time. But when you're trying to do things differently than that, it gets obviously a lot more complex, and I think that so Trent Reznor was a big one, obviously. Aaron Turner from ISIS was a big one, obviously. David Gilmour. Just looking at how effortlessly they did it, and then of course, obviously, all the way back to Kurt Cobain. Just this. There's an energy and a way that you have to approach the instrument a little bit differently when you're singing, and I think those examples are probably the biggest ones for me.
Lyrically, you said you brought up like a lot of reading in books and stuff. I've noticed that probably one of my favorite, like if I ever dabble into lyrics and stuff, I'm mostly just musical. But um Chuck from who did Fight Club, he's probably one of my favorite authors. His Fight Club is a very like the way he writes, it's lyrically. If you understand what I'm saying, because it's real like
Prose. It's prose.
like
Yeah.
dude, it's so good. Dude, Chuck is amazing. He's probably one of my
Yeah,
favorite.
I got Fight Club, and I've got Lullaby on my
Oh,
shelf.
boy.
I've actually read like 4 or 5 of his books, but I only own those two.
Do you have any
Um,
other favorite authors?
I got a whole bunch of Stephen King.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
king. I got a whole bunch of Stephen King books. I'm
Stephen
actually
King, that's
finishing up his latest novel right now.
oh,
I love Stephen King. Obviously, as somebody who's I've been a lifelong fan of his too. I was reading at a much higher grade level at a young
mhm,
age, so I was reading like It when I was like 10 years old and
yeah.
stuff like that. And I love Stephen King. I love Philip K. Dick. Uh,
Hmm.
I to some extent I like Anne Rice a lot. I also read a lot of like nonfiction. It's only recently that I've gotten back into reading fiction, and I'm really enjoying some escapism, in this
Yeah.
insufferable world.
Mhm.
But I love stuff like true crime. One of my favorites is Sleepers by Lorenzo Carcaterra.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the movie they made out of that
Oh
in the
no,
90s?
yeah, no, no.
Oh man,
I love
highly
that.
recommend the movie. Highly recommend the book.
All right, let me.
Um, it's a true story too, and it's a really fucked up true story. But it's like I love stories like that. So those are some of my. I'm also a big fan of I Heard You Paint Houses, which got turned
Mhm.
into The Irishman.
Yep.
I saw that movie and I was like, oh my god, I love Scorsese already, but that movie was so good. I had to go and read the book, and the book fills out a lot of gaps that
That's
even
it.
a 4-hour movie can't
Write
cover.
that down. Yeah.
Yeah. So The Irishman, great book, but originally published as I Heard You Paint Houses.
Yeah. I love that movie. A lot of people were like turned off by it, I guess, because of they try to make him look younger. In his younger version, he seemed a little stiff and stuff like that. But I was like, it's Scorsese. Like, there's no bad in Scorsese to me. Like, I can't. There's
Yeah.
nothing he cannot screw up. Like, I've since Taxi Driver and was it Mean Streets was another like a lot of his early
Mhm.
stuff. It's just like so influential, so groundbreaking, so amazing. Like I can throw on Goodfellas and just I can watch it's in any time I can throw it on and watch it. That's how good Scorsese is.
Yeah, his movies I will watch with absolute laser focused attention to detail, or I can put them on as casual in the background with their friends over. And Goodfellas is one of the best examples of that because it's such a classic quotable movie, you
So good.
know?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I love mob movies, especially the
Oh yeah,
classics,
me too.
like Godfather and everything. Jack, our bass player, and I, we were hanging out for Christmas, just having, family chill time for Christmas. And
Right.
we went and we watched Godfather 1 and 2.
Yeah.
It was a long,
Yeah.
long block of time, but we rewatched those and we were just like having such like the stereotypical man time on the couch, like we're watching Godfather 2, man.
Just
Yeah,
hanging out having a few drinks, watching Godfather. That's awesome, dude.
yeah. Who are some other authors here? Let me think here. The Zodiac books, Robert
Mhm.
Graysmith.
Oh yeah.
I am still to this day obsessed with that story. I'm not someone who glorifies serial killers at all.
Right.
Um, I did a little dance when Richard Ramirez died
Oh
and when
yeah.
Charles Manson died. I did a little dance.
Of course.
I
Yeah.
wish I could piss on their graves,
Oh yeah.
but the fascinating aspect of like from an investigation and psychological
Oh yeah.
perspective, I
Absolutely.
love those stories.
I love them.
And Zodiac is so fascinating because of how much work went into ultimately failing, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And they're pretty confident they know who it was,
Right.
but there's going to be endless debate because they never made an arrest. So,
And
stuff like that I love. Also, we're also friends with an LA author named CJ Lead. She's got 2 books out.
mm,
Um, she did one in 2022 called Mayfly, and then last year 2020, actually I think Mayfly came out in 2023. Yeah, and then her second book American Rapture came out last year, um just like over the summer of 2024, and that one is superb. I mean, they're both great, but American Rapture is superb, like really really good stuff.
okay.
um
Take a note of
so
that.
that's a friend of ours, so I highly recommend her stuff.
Cool, man. Awesome. Yeah, I have a friend, Sean Baker. He's likes to do like horror and stuff like that. And he just got done writing like a giallo, like an Italian giallo inspired
Mhm.
um novel. So I'm excited about getting into that one because I love 70s giallo,
Oh
Italian
yeah,
horror type stuff. Oh my gosh. I'm obsessed.
70s and 80s horror, that's like
Amazing.
my golden era of horror films. Like I will go all the way back to the silent era stuff. Like I have watched anything. Like there's obviously stuff I've missed throughout years, but like I celebrate the entire history of horror cinema. But like 70s and 80s is like primo stuff.
Yes. The good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
For sure.
Argento, Bava, like all that, like all the obvious names. Great stuff. Wes Craven obviously was like a huge one for me too. Like I love the original Nightmare on Elm Street so much. George Romero is a huge one for me. I love Night of the Living Dead. Dawn of the Dead is one of my favorites. um Day of the Dead's great too. All the Romero stuff, Creep Show,
Creep
like
Show. Oh my gosh. Stephen King and Romero. Come on. I mean, come on. It's gold.
yeah,
It's
like
gold.
those two working together, forget about it.
So good. And it's just like
Yeah.
it's fun, it's cheesy, it's scary. It
Mm-hmm.
and just anytime it's Father's Day, I have to watch, I want my cake, that I have to watch it. It's
Dude,
like
so good.
traditional, man. It's so good. So, oh yeah. There's this documentary. It's called In Search of Darkness.
Oh, I've watched all 3 of
You
them.
watch? Okay, yeah, me too, dude. I've watched all like almost 5 hours of each one. I'm just like, and I can turn them on all the time and just like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just watch it just because it's like, oh, there's that clip, and then they're going behind the scenes with this, and Corey Taylor's talking about what his favorite thing. It's just like, oh
I
my god.
love those because even somebody who is as well versed as I am, I annihilate anyone in movie trivia.
Mm-hmm.
But I am well versed, especially in 70s and 80s horror.
Yeah.
But those movies take you to school,
Oh yeah.
because like I'll be sitting there watching them, and like those were perfect for like a lazy Sunday where you're just sitting around having a beer or something,
Of
and
course.
like you're like, oh yeah, this one, oh yeah, that one, oh it's so good. What she just said is exactly right about that movie, and then you're like, what the fuck is this? How have I never heard of this one? And then you're like, okay, I got to make a list.
Yep.
And then some of this stuff just like doesn't exist on streaming, or like the physical copies are impossible to find,
Oh yeah.
unless
Tubi's
somebody
taking me
like
to school with some stuff. Like Tubi, well, I'll just be like, what is that? Like, where did they dig that up from? Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
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 absolutely. But I'm really excited for volume 4 of In Search of Darkness, which is going to
Oh,
focus on the 90s.
90s, dude.
No,
So
I'm
good.
really excited about because there was some great shit in the 90s too, because I
Yeah.
still feel like there was a lot of carryover of the spirit of the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of the 90s movies. Like Carpenter was still pretty active in the 90s. He did his last few great films. I love In the Mouth of Madness, and I
Oh,
know they're going
good.
to talk
And
about
the
that
Elton, dude. Yeah.
on volume 4. I
Mm-hmm.
love that movie so much. And then I'm just a big John Carpenter fan in general, but you know,
So good.
yeah.
I could talk
So
about that all day, dude. No
we could
joke.
talk about that shit all day.
Yeah, let me at least try and get into some of the music questions.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
The same outcome speaks volumes lyrically about the state of things now and as well as the state of things to come. Did you feel the songwriting session was therapeutic and it felt like it was a weight lifted?
Yeah, I mean, they stretched out over a long period of time. The closing track on the record was actually the first song we wrote for the record, and that was right at the beginning of lockdown when everything just felt so bleak. And Jack and I pretty much wrote that right here in my living room,
Yeah.
because we had moved like a lot of the stuff out of the studio and just kind of started working on stuff here.
Yeah.
We were in lockdown together for like 4 months basically, and so there was a lot of catharsis in that, especially in those early songs. Um, but once we got comfortable to go back to the studio and started writing there, most of the lyric sessions I would do like completely by myself. I don't write lyrics with people around. I need to kind of just like get in my head and
Zone, yeah.
and it when I feel like I've really hit at the core of what the song is about, when I feel like I've really like struck that balance between lyrical message and the melody is, accompanying the music, because we always do the music first and then the lyrics and melody for the vocals kind of come almost dead last. Sometimes it'll happen along the way, but whenever I feel like I've really made the lyrics and the vocal melody go with the music like in a meaningful, powerful way, it is the most cathartic thing for me. It's like it feels like the song is done. I mean, obviously it's not done until I've done all the vocal production and everything, but once I feel like, okay, this is the direction for the vocals, it is so cathartic. It feels like I'm saying what I want to say, even if no one gets it, even if no one really it doesn't really resonate with anyone. Like I feel very much, relieved to have gotten it out. And sometimes it's really easy, sometimes it's really hard.
Oh yeah.
You know, if it's hard, then it's like even more satisfying when I'm finally like, fucking gotcha, fucking
Yeah.
gotcha. You know,
Yep.
yeah, choked it out.
Boosted up, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to wrestle that piece to the ground and just like, what are you about? You
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
because like I always have like a running list of like concepts that I want to work on, and like, okay, what concept does
Right.
this apply to, and like does this song apply to, and then when I find it and I feel like it really, like, there is no other thing that this song could be about, then I feel so satisfied.
It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
How did you approach this album musically, and how does it differ from your debut album?
Um, Musically, this was very different, in the sense that it was our first full length with our drummer Corey.
Mm.
Uh, our previous drummer departed at the beginning of 2020, and we immediately started working with Corey, um, like on some songs that would go with this record, but also we did like, a 5-song EP and a split, and then
Bunch of
and
remixes.
yeah, a couple singles. But like we immediately started writing with him, like, especially like during lockdown. We were doing like everything like remotely, because he has a V drum kit. So the approach there was very different, because our previous drummer didn't have a V drum kit. We always had to be in the room writing with him,
Yeah.
and a lot of times it's just like, I've written in rooms with bands before, but like being a producer who sits at a desk a lot of the time,
Yeah.
being able to sketch out a concept and then like give it to Jack and Corey to like then marinate on and have their feedback, like that completely revolutionized the writing process for us. Because before it would be like I'd have a skeleton, I'd bring it into this studio space, and we'd all just like jam out to it and like see where things fall, and it ended up being like kind of inefficient in a lot of ways. I mean, at least just for like, like expediency, like just
No, I
getting
get
it
it.
like I'm not one to rush things, but like if I feel like this idea is burning a hole in my pocket, and like I'm feeling like okay, this is slowing things down. But like lockdown almost forced us to be a lot more direct with our process.
Hmm.
So writing with Corey on a remote basis was so awesome. And I guess the approach of it was just that like we wanted to have it be like a bigger sound. Like Fallen Language I feel like it has some big moments,
Hmm.
but ultimately the production is very like, it's slim, I guess.
Understand what you mean.
Not that I'm like, harshly criticizing myself or anything. I'll look back on that record and say that it's not as good as the new record, but I think the approach this time was to definitely lean more into the industrial vibes, and we still have like the doom metal vibe that we had from Fallen Language, but this is like definitely focused more on like modular synthesis,
No.
samples, and like the guitar really having a lot of interplay with the drums, instead of just like writing a riff and the drums kind of keeping a beat. Like there's a lot of like meter interplay, like the riffs would change based on what Corey wanted to do, or Corey would change things based on like and like, oh, the riff started this way, changes this way, and then now we all just kind of have to like adjust the entire song because this is working better. um so I think like the approach this time was a lot more focused. I guess that's the simplest way to put it. Getting a little verbose here, but I think
Yeah.
yeah, it was just a lot more focused. Like I knew the sound that we wanted to do was going to be different. I mean, there's still the doom metal. Oh shit,
Oh, you're
there's
good.
still the doom metal stuff that pokes out on the record, like on songs like Apathy Wave,
Yeah.
um, which was actually one that Jack had started writing like years ago when we first got together. It got shelved for a while, and then we're like, you know what? I think this kind of fits on the record in a weird way because so much of the record is very like head bobbing,
Hmm.
like industrial, and then there's this really weird doom metal song like right in the middle of it,
Yeah.
which still has the industrial elements, but I still think overall, it feels a lot more focused to me than Fallen Language does, and so yeah, that's really it. More apocalyptic, more
Yes.
industrial
Yeah.
sounding.
Yes. Absolutely.
Same outcome is not a happy record
No.
in the song itself. The title track is not a happy notion. So I just just decided like, well, we're leaning into that, you
Yes.
know.
No, I get it. And did you take the time to, I mean, because you've been doing, I mean, from, making music videos to producing and mixing, you kind of been on your own kind of doing it. Were you taking the time to learn new tricks and new parts of mixing and expanding the sound and learning new like DAWs or software, anything like that? Because if I mean, you definitely wanted to branch away from what you would say a bit more of a thinner sound to a broader sound. Were you kind of learning how to do that while you're on lockdown?
Yeah, I'm always trying to learn more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to be a little bit better of a guitar player, even though like I don't like need to be a shredder or anything. Like that's never been my focus. But like being an overall better musician and producer and mix engineer is always my goal. Like, how can I improve this sound? Really the focus was on like, like getting better low end on this record. I think that's part of why Fallen Language feels so thin to me, is like I didn't, I've been mixing for a lot of years, but like sometimes when you're mixing your own stuff, like you lose, you kind of lose sight of things.
Yeah, I get it.
It felt thinner to me. And so this record, I really wanted to focus on the low end. So
Yep.
I spent a lot of time, being very careful with that, in the mixing process, really putting a lot of low end into the synths, into like, Jack's bass tones, stuff like that. Um, I'm always trying to learn new tricks, especially in that sense. And then because we make all of our own videos essentially out of necessity, because we can't really afford to hire anybody.
Right. Oh yeah.
Even if we could afford to hire anybody, I would mostly hire them to help me direct the video because I love filmmaking as much as I love making music. And
Oh yeah.
so I love conceptualizing the music videos with Jack, and just seeing what's going to work, what's not going to work. Like, okay, what do we need to rent a location, stuff like that, and just getting better and more efficient at that stuff, and just getting better at lighting and running the camera and also the video editing, like learning more things about, because I've been editing video since high school. I learned how to edit, do nonlinear and linear editing
Yeah.
in high school. Like I used to do deck to deck editing in video production class,
Yep.
but like getting better at that, um, it has been a huge focus of this record. Like I really focused on the mixing like, of the record, but once the record was done, we're like, okay, we need to like shoot these videos, like taking a lot of time to like come up with concepts for 4 videos and executing them to the best of our ability with the little resources that we have, squeezing every piece of quality I can out of every dime. That took a lot of like, a lot of learning, getting better with the camera, getting better with the editing suites, getting better at mixing. That's always a focus. I think the newest trick that I learned, to really answer more to your directly to your question, was on the same outcome video. There's the double exposure effect,
Yes.
which a lot of people know from True Detective, which we're not going to lie, we're hugely influenced by that show as well.
Absolutely.
Um, the that was something that we went into that video knowing we wanted to do,
Mm.
and we weren't sure how we were going to apply it because we had the whole concept of the ferrofluid, which is what that liquid goopy stuff that's in that video. And like a lot of other bands have used that stuff, but we were like, okay, how can we make it different in our own?
Of course.
So Jack and I actually spent like a lot of time testing that stuff, like
Good.
buying that stuff and testing it. Like, okay, what's the safe practice of fucking with this fluid in the first place? He's a scientist. He's got, he messes with chemicals.
Oh,
Like
well, there
he
you go. Yeah.
used to do like labs all the time. Like that used to be his thing, but he doesn't, he works from home now and he's like a coder engineer and stuff like that. But
Mm.
he's very familiar with lab safety and like how substances behave and whatnot. So we were like, we spent a lot of time like learning how to, mess with this substance in an effective, creative way, and then how to film it,
Yep.
how to light it and how to film it. And then we shot that entire video in our studio, in
That's
our own rehearsal space.
a
And
great video too. Yeah, it's
thank
fantastic.
you.
Man. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So shooting tons of footage and then doing all different kinds of setups, behind and in front of this plexiglass that we bought. Um, and then putting it all together, in a creative way, and then having to learn how to edit it in the way that I wanted
Yep.
was a whole learning curve. But
Yeah.
I am so thankful to the engineers at DaVinci Resolve for making a way more intuitive and efficient editing system for me to learn. Because if I'd tried to do that in Premiere, I probably would have just scrapped the video.
Flip the table. I'm done. I've had
Fuck this shit. Because
God.
Premiere is a nice. It's nice to get started on, but I think it's highly flawed.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adobe, your shit sucks.
It's okay. Thank you. I get it. Believe me, I understand that. So going through so much editing software is like, oh God.
Yeah, DaVinci Resolve is the best though because
It's
like
the best.
Ableton Live,
Mhm.
like it's like I love DaVinci Resolve. It's my favorite editing suite. I love Ableton Live. These are two companies that do not make you subscribe to their service. You
Yep.
buy the license, you own it for life, and then yeah, maybe there's a fee to upgrade to a new
Of
version later.
course.
But
Yeah.
I've had DaVinci Resolve for 3.5 years now, and I have not paid for a single update, and I have the full version of it, and it's just loaded with tools. It's just loaded with tools, and there's just so much stuff you can do with it if you're creatively minded and you think outside the box. There's so much stuff you can do.
Would you make your own movie?
Holy shit. A lot of people have asked me that. And because I'm such a movie fan, a lot of
Yeah, I
people
was
have
gonna
asked me
say.
that. And they see like your videos look pretty good. I'm like, I don't
Oh,
need to believe
like
it. I'm like, I'm
movie.
glad people
Like
like
it's
my
so
videos,
good.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I think, I think they come out pretty good. And like I'm always wanting to improve them. But as far as making a movie, it's so much work. I have friends who make movies. My friend Travis in Contra Cult, he's got a movie production company, and just getting their first few films off the ground was, arduous for them. And I've helped them out with sound on one of their movies that came out recently. Did like the final sound mix on it, and it's like being a part of that machine is really rewarding. But like conceptualizing and executing an entire film, it takes a village, as they say. Like it literally does. It takes like you have to have so many people in your corner,
Oh yeah.
and so many people willing to spend money
Yep.
to get a movie made. And so like doing a short film as a starting point, maybe at some point. Um, I know a fair amount of actors. I could bring some people in to help with lighting so that I'm not doing everything myself. But it's just like I would love to, but
Mhm.
right now it's not my priority.
I get it. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Tell me about your experience in the industrial scene as well as the metal scene. Is it, in LA, it's take it or leave it. Like, what's your kind of own experience in getting into it?
It's taken us a while to actually like poke our heads out of the ground, you know. We've luckily had some people in our corner for a while. Daniel Dismal from Church of the Eighth Day
Mhm.
um, gave us our first opening slot in 2017, opening for Author and Punisher.
Oh,
Uh,
love him. Love that dude.
Dude,
I'm
Tristan's
dying to
rad.
get him on my podcast. I swear to God, I think I'm stalking him every month. Like, hey, dude. Like, I love
Yeah,
his work, dude. It's so good.
he's really great. He's really inspiring, and he's always really friendly to talk to.
Mhm.
You know, whenever you talk to him, it's nice to not get that rock star vibe from him. Like, cool dude. And I have some friends in San Diego who've known him for years that say, yeah, he's a good dude. Like, I don't know him that well personally. I've only had like 10 or so interactions with
Show
him.
talks
You
or
know,
post show talks. Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean he's a really sweet dude.
Hmm.
Uh, so we have, you know, we've had some opportunities, and then we've luckily had some people who see that like we're a hardworking band, and you know have hooked us up with this gig or that gig. And 9 times out of 10, like some of the best opportunities we've had have come from Daniel Dismal at Church of the Eighth Day. He mostly does metal stuff, but he was one of the figureheads of this venue that was very short lived in Glendale called Complex,
Hmm.
and it got steamrolled by the city for eminent domain because they wanted to bulldoze it and put up apartments. But like for a while, for like a 2-3 year period of time there were so many good shows coming through there. And he was throwing us bones left and right. Like he was helping us out. And even after Complex closed, he was still trying to throw us bones whenever appropriate. He got us an opening slot for Mortiz. We played with Spirit in the Room. And most recently, he hooked us up with the opening slot for Stabbing Westward.
I was gonna bring that. I brought that up. That's on.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So and that's all Daniel Dismal. Like almost all the best shows we've had, especially local, have been through him.
yeah.
And so we've had some people in our corner who see that like we're doing something a little a little unconventional from your typical LA industrial stuff. And they've hooked us up. And then Travis from Contra Cult has had our back a lot. He's gotten us on some shows.
Yeah.
Um, and we were supposed to do a tour with him, but it just never, materialized because DIY stuff is just really, really hard
Yeah.
post COVID.
Yeah.
Um, but like little by little, it's been interesting over the last 7 years to see us go from like being like underdogs that nobody really has any respect for to finally we kind of have a little bit of a rep. Like, we're still like the opening slot band. We played a few headlining shows at like Bar Sinister and whatnot, but like it's really nice to start to see people to like really dig what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because we know that we're not like, the most danceable industrial band. And that's what a lot of LA wants right now is like the
Mhm.
danceable industrial, the post punk, the dark wave stuff.
Yeah.
But, I don't want to say we're like trying to reinvent the wheel or anything,
Oh,
but
of
we're trying to do something that's like a little more outside of the norm.
course.
Like Skinny Puppy is one of my favorite bands
Oh
ever.
yeah.
And
In here, yeah.
it my girlfriend even said it about David Lynch, and the same thing goes about Skinny Puppy. Like, how did a band this weird or a director like David Lynch this weird get so fucking popular?
Yeah.
And it's like because it speaks to people, it resonates with people, and like that's essentially what I think we're trying to do is like do something weird that still resonates with people. And the fact that it's starting to click with people has been interesting because it's been hard because we're not conventional.
No.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's just keep doing what you love to do. If there's anything that I learned most about with this podcast, most artists are like, just keep doing it. Don't
yeah,
don't just go, I'm not what's popular. I'm just gonna stop. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you love to do. If it's something that makes you happy, something that you love to do, then just keep doing it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you'll never grow if you put it down.
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and our whole goal is to like, no matter what, no matter how much like little or a lot of success we achieve, you know, like I'm happy to continue being in the kind of state that we're in because we're doing okay as a band right now. We're not like, you know, making a ton of money, but like we have records out on vinyl and we're playing some cool shows, opening for cool bands.
Yeah.
And if it stays that way for a while, cool. Like I'm happy with it. But like we will continue to grow in our creative process. And that's really the thing that will make me the happiest is if we just continue to grow, evolve our sound, and make sure that you know the next record doesn't sound exactly like the last one.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
Um,
Yeah, you did is it Aesthetic Perfection? I got done talking with, oh man, his he was with Aesthetic Perfection, Gen Cab.
oh
I'm
yeah,
yeah, he
David.
was on my podcast, yeah. So
He's been a homie of ours for a little while now. He's really tight with my girlfriend because they did a track together earlier this year or last year, I should say now.
cool.
Um, yeah, David's rad. I love that guy.
David, thank you. Yeah.
He was getting drunk with us on election night. We had him on the phone and he was getting drunk with us on election night and we were just like it felt like we were watching like a car crash in slow motion, you know.
And we're still in the remnants of that where it's still like it's
Uh-huh.
it's like things are just going. It's just like, God, please just something's got to get better. Something's got to pick up because it's like, man, we
Always dark before the dawn, as they
I think
say.
it is. I think
Yeah. I
it
mean,
generates inspiration for great music. I think.
100%, you know, like now's the time for revolution music. It's funny to me because in 2016 everybody said that like, you know, David Bowie dying like kind of like tore the fabric of reality apart and everything started going downhill ever since. I feel like we got a second wave of that when Skinny Puppy decided to end.
Yep.
They're like everything's just getting worse and then David Lynch dying right before the inauguration. I'm just like
Oh,
I'm not a cosmic thinking kind of person. I'm very atheist, even though I meditate, you know. Like but it's like, man, the coincidences of certain things are just like, oh my God, Skinny Puppy, like it's almost as if like they had their finger in the hole in the dam, and then
mm-hmm.
they're like, all right, we're retiring. And then like
Yep.
now the dam's you know,
Hearts are breaking. You're just like, oh God, I get it. And
yeah.
even like with Ministry, he's like, I've only made good albums when there's a Republican in office. So
No, that's what everyone tells him.
yeah,
That's what everyone like.
yeah,
That's what everyone tells him. He doesn't agree. Personally, you know what
yeah.
my favorite Ministry record is? Can you guess what my favorite Ministry record is?
I want to say either With Sympathy or 12-inch Singles. Twitch.
I love Twitch.
I
I
love
love
Twitch.
Twitch.
I love Twitch.
I love Twitch, but later.
Oh, you're going later stuff. Uh, is it House of the Mole?
No,
No.
I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
Dark Side of the Spoon,
Okay, it's a good one. Hell yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that was when Clinton was in office.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's true.
Fucking love that record. I love that record because I mean, yeah, as much as I love him shitting on politicians,
Yeah.
that record to me was more about like his experiences with
Yeah.
drug abuse, like Dark Side of the Spoon. Obviously he's like lampooning the most famous album ever made by Pink Floyd,
Yeah.
but like there's obviously a second meaning to that. It's like Dark Side of the Spoon, it's like heroin addiction. Like you watch that if you've watched the documentary
Oh, the
on
documentary.
history, he's like very very casual with his
He was. He would just sit there and just be like talking. He has the needle, and
talking. He's just got the syringe like it's a cigarette,
yeah,
you
he's like
know.
flipping it around and just
Yeah.
talking, and he's like and just he's tapping it up. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Yeah. So, you know,
wild
Dark Side of the
documentary.
Spoon, Dark
Yeah.
Side of the Spoon and Filth Pig to me are like,
Mhm.
you know, two peas in a pod. Those are like a pair. Like those records were done back to back.
Yep.
But I love Dark Side of the Spoon. Like that is a no skip record. Every
Mhm.
track is fucking beautiful. The way it flows into like next one, like flows in. It's one of those records, like I've listened to it so many times that like the tail end of this song, I'm already
You're
hearing
already thinking,
opening notes of the next song,
yes.
you know, or like
Mhm.
the opening sample or whatever.
Yep.
That record and like the drum sounds, that
Oh, so
Paul Barker's bass tone on that record. Like I showed that record to Jack, and
Mhm.
Jack is like more of a hardcore kid, and he's learned more about industrial since
Joining.
partnering with me. But we were listening to Dark Side of the Spoon one night, and he's like, this is the fucking bass tone we should be chasing, dude. And I was like, I'm saying, because it's like that there's just something so good about that bass tone. And I'm excited to hear Paul Barker, on what's going to be the final Ministry record.
No, I was talking with Chris Conley, and I'm like, dude, if they ever come to you, would you accept it? And he's like, absolutely. And I'm just like, I posted that clip, and I'm like, you guys better get Chris Conley on that fucking record. That last record, we need, you know,
You need the whole gang back. Like you got to get Ogre on it too.
oh,
Like
get Ogre,
get
get,
Ogre in there because obviously Ogre's a free agent now. I'm
yeah,
sure he's still going to do Ogre solo stuff, and he's got a new project with Ken Marshall that's under wraps right now. But get Ogre off of his horse farm and have him sing a couple tracks on the Final Ministry record, like for old time's sake.
he's
You
been
know,
doing horror movie conventions, and I'm just like, oh my god, please get back into doing music. I mean, I get it if you're, I mean, believe me, horror movie conventions, that is a money maker, dude.
for
Anytime
sure.
you go, everybody's charging crazy money for autographs and pictures. I get it, making great money, but dude, I'm just like, I'm itching for some more Ogre vocals, man. I'm
Oh,
going crazy,
100%. I mean,
dude.
Ogre is just genuinely like loves the fans too. Even
Yes,
even as much of a like an introverted kind of person as he
yep,
is, I know that he genuinely appreciates people who appreciate his art.
yep.
Um, like he was, all in this final tour, you heard him talking about how like I was a mess when this started, when this band started, I was a fucking mess and I don't even know how I survived, but here I am. And he like has such a, you know, um like revitalized view on things, it seems like now. I know he likes his privacy and he's very introverted, but like I think he does those conventions because he loves interacting with people and I think it inspires him in a way, you know.
Yeah.
So but I've heard that he's doing a new project with Ken Marshall, who I think is just an amazing guy. I love his YouTube channel. I've learned
I
a
love
lot.
watching it. Everything that he just dabbles in. He'll show remixes or, he'll just show me something brand new. I'm like, how did I not fucking think of that? Like
Back
he's
to that whole point about like learning
good.
new stuff and
Yes.
getting better at the process. Like he's one of my go-to
Oh,
resources.
solid. Yep.
Like if I'm going to the studio and I feel like I need to get in the mindset, like sometimes I'll just put on Ken Marshall video
Yep.
just for like his attitude, his energy.
He's got such great, like he's enthusiastic. He's like, hey, everybody, like he's just, well, razzle dazzle and everything.
Check this out.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Like
Check it out. I'm just like, oh my God,
like
I love
the
your energy.
goth surfer. He's
Yes.
like the goth surfer, like, but except he's like snowboards in the mountains.
Yep.
But like he's such a character,
Yes.
and his mixes all sound so good. Like all those Skinny Puppy records just sound so fucking good. All the ones that he mixed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, even the Dave Ogilvy ones sound great too. But
Mm-hmm.
like Ken Marshall was involved with him even back when Ogilvy was the primary mix engineer. But like, dude, like, and him touring around with them, like that live album that they did back in like 2012,
Oh,
it sounds so good. And that's Ken Marshall's front of house mix, and then he did the mix in the final mix in the studio because he put a Zoom recorder like right on top of the mix desk
mm-hmm.
during each show, and like that record sounds so fucking good.
So wonderful, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was one of the songs off Mythmaker where he's like, oh, we sampled I guess the Canadian, was it the hockey was in the Olympics or
Mm.
whatever, and they sampled everybody cheering and having a good time. I totally didn't connect that until I watched his video.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I neither did I,
Yeah.
because a lot of that stuff, like that ear candy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There are some instances where I think to myself when I'm listening to it for the 100th time, like I'm like, where did they get that sound? Other
Yes.
times, most of the time, really, I don't even want to think about it. If I see a video where Ken Marshall or someone else like cracks open the hood and reveals how they made that sound, I'm fascinated by it.
Yep.
But like I don't ask for that stuff, and I don't like try to like try
Of
to figure out what it is. Like I just try to like enjoy the experience.
course.
Like
Yeah.
I had that conversation with Noah Landis from
Mm-hmm.
Neurosis.
Mm-hmm.
I was a huge Neurosis fan for a while. It really sucks what happened with them.
Right.
I don't know if you know about the controversy with Scott Kelly and all that shit, but that is like a really important band for me. And I remember seeing Scott Kelly doing an acoustic set one time, and Noah Landis was playing keyboards with him because they would just always do projects together, and we were kind of talking shop about music production, and then the song "My Heart for Deliverance" came up, and there is in the last chunk of that song, because it's like in an A, B, and C kind of, so it's like a
Yeah.
13-minute song,
Yeah.
but there is this really almost like Middle Eastern like wood
Hmm.
instrument sound in
Hmm.
it during like the outro of that song that's just like tear jerking outro.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, how the hell did you come up with that sound? He's like, he wanted to tell me. It's clear that he wanted to like talk shop with me, but he's just like, is it going to ruin it for you if I tell
Right.
you?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I want to know.
Right.
And so he broke it all down for me, and I was just like, that's awesome.
That's
You
so.
know, it was some sample from some Middle Eastern instrument that he had, and the way he just like trimmed it up and then pitched it and then played it through contact. You know, I love looking under the hood sometimes, but most of the time when I'm listening, I just want to experience it.
Yep. That's
You
how
know,
I wanted to get John Crosby from Vast on my, because I just need to know certain things, and that first album from Vast is so good, and he would get these samples from like monks or uh, people sounding like they're working on train tracks and stuff, and I'm just like, I want to know, how did you get those, and how did you incorporate it so well and so beautifully,
mm-hmm.
like yeah, I'm like, I need to know the dirt. That's just how I am, like musically. I just like, give me all the answers, you know what I mean?
I think back even like to the antiquated days of the mid '80s, like when Skinny Puppy was making some of their like greatest records, like
Yeah.
stuff like on Vivisect 6 or Two Dark Park, and like the samples that show up on those records that what movies they're from.
Oh yeah.
Like you instantly know as a horror fan, like, oh, this is from Evil Dead 2.
Yes, of
And you're
course. Yeah.
like, and it just seems like you think to yourself, like, damn, I could have done that. But it's like, no, you couldn't have. No, you
Right.
couldn't have. There's no way you could have like no way you could have like pulled the sample, like, I hope you rot down there or something of that nature, and chopped it up and put it to the music the exact specific way that
Thank
they
you.
did, and what their process was, using only hardware,
Only
not computers,
hardware. Thank you. Yep. Yep.
only hardware, not computers. Like that's like to be a fly on the wall in a room when a moment like that, a magic moment like that happened. Like I love thinking about that stuff.
And I follow his on YouTube where he'll just go into these, you know, 3 hour deep dives on an album and be like, okay, here's what gear I used for this, and stuff like that. I totally geek out when it comes to Kevin just opening everything up and just going, okay, here's how I got this sample, or here's the floppy disk that has this on it. And it's just like, oh
Yeah, no, that stuff's great. I love that stuff.
yeah.
Um, and it's informative too, especially as somebody who's like trying to learn how to do that stuff. I mean, I've been doing it for years, but like I'm always wanting to learn new tricks. And like sometimes when you see somebody who's been doing it as long as him, and you see the way that they did, I'm like, never thought about that way. Never
Right.
thought about it that way. You know,
I get it. Yep. Yeah. You have some amazing remixes. How do you approach going in on a remix and going, how do I keep the balance between who I'm remixing and kind of having my own, twist on it? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
oh, absolutely. To me, remixes should be like reinventing the song.
Yeah.
Um, are you talking about the remixes that we do for other
Yes.
artists? Yeah.
Hmm.
I always want it to feel like a new song entirely, because those were the remixes that I loved the most growing up. Like hearing a Nine Inch Nails song, but like basically fed through a garbage disposal and then spit out the other side. But and then it's just like, this is so good. It has the things I love about the original version, but it's like a completely different lens. Like I hate when remixes are just like really just, oh, we put a dance beat behind it. You know,
Hmm.
like there you can put a dance beat behind it, but then like putting your own spin on things and doing some creative tricks and stuff like that. For me, I always like to completely reinvent the song as much as possible. I'm really proud of the one that we did for Contra Cult, uh,
Hmm.
Meek remix. I don't know if you've heard that one, but I was really, really, you know, humbled when Travis like heard that, and he was like, "This is how you do a remix." And I was like, "Thanks, man. I appreciate that." And like the approach is always like, make it a new song. Make it like, is if someone heard this one, they'd be like, and even if they already knew the original song and they heard this, they'd be like, "What is this song?" this is really good. Oh, wait, this is a remix of that other one. Like it shouldn't obviously be just like the dance mix, you
Mm.
know, like at least from my perspective, like doing just a dance mix of a song is cool and all, but I really like it when it looks at things from a completely different direction. Adding instrumentation that you wouldn't think normally be there. For like the Meek one, we actually had our drummer Corey play drums on it, you know, and I mixed it with some like a modular kick that I made and a modular snare that I made in, you know, and then I just like cut those up as samples and like put them over the kick and the snare, and then
Mm.
did all kinds of, you know, that one has a lot of modular on it, and then there's some MIDI too. But I have so many tools in my shed that I don't ever like to get too pigeonholed in one thing. So coming from it from a different direction every time is how it keeps it fresh. And if somebody comes to us for a remix, then I want it to feel like a new song.
Yeah. Who would you collaborate with, whether it be musically or non-musically?
Who would we love to collaborate
Yep.
with? Like, who would be our number one?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Fuck, man. I mean, it's like I would love to work with Nine Inch Nails. I would love to work with Health. I would love to work with Fear Factory.
Yep.
Um, uh, Godflesh.
Oh,
Godflesh is a huge one. I love Justin Broderick.
oh yeah.
Uh,
He's
if I yeah, he's a huge one for me, and I would love to work with him. And he's like one of the big reasons why I started playing an eight string. He stopped playing eight strings. He moved back to seven strings now. But like I love the eight string sound. I just love how nasty it can sound, and then also so beautiful. Um, but I Godflesh, big one, Nine Inch Nails, Health, Fear Factory. Who else? I'm looking over at my record shelf
oh,
here.
you're good. Yeah.
Uh, Faith No More, it's a big
Oh,
one. But I mean,
with Mike Patton. Oh my God.
yeah, they seem to be settled into like a legacy band sort of scenario. Like it's been a while since their last new record. But if they ever did something new, I would love to be a part of it in one way or another.
Yeah. I'll have to set you up with Justin Pearson. I had him on the podcast and I was like, how did you guys even get in the same room together? Like, and he's just like, oh, well, we just started talking, hanging out. We did this tour on this, and I'm just like, Mike Patton is just like he's like the like King Midas to alternative music. Everything he touches is just pure gold, dude. He's
Oh
so
yeah,
freaking
that
talented.
was that was a huge influence for me when I was young. I remember when I was like probably like 7 years old. You know, it was like when we first got MTV. My mom was actually able to afford having cable, so we had MTV. And I remember like falling to pieces and Epic being on constant rotation on MTV. Like I would watch my after school cartoons, and then a block of videos would come on MTV at like a certain time, and like there was always those. And like I got obsessed with Faith No More at a pretty young age, and that bass tone, like that has really influenced like our bass tone in a lot of ways. Obviously, it's not exactly like Billy Gould's, but like I fucking love that band so much.
Yeah, Mr. Bungle was kind of my go-to. I just like
Oh
anything
yeah,
eccentric and weird. You know, I'm all
I
I'm all
love Mr. Bungle, man. Uh, quick, what's your favorite Mr. Bungle record? This is always an interesting question for people.
you know what? I always come back to California.
Mine too. It's my
You know
favorite.
what I mean? It's got a weird like it was almost like he was like, all right, let's get like the Beach Boys vibe where it's got the surfer type vibe, the
Yeah.
surf rock and stuff, but Goodbye Sober Days, dude. I can play that. I can listen to that song just because it just goes from one extreme to another, and then you just hear his vocals just and I'm just like get goosebumps every time, dude.
Yeah. No, that record has like a criminally high amount of iconic moments on it.
So good,
Like
dude. Yeah.
like Air Conditioned Nightmare, like Pink Cigarette. Like Pink Cigarette is like I have like the second the opening note, like chills. And then you know, yeah, that whole record is
So good.
so good. So fucking good. And then Retro Vertigo.
Oh, dude.
Like, dude, I that's the kind of song where I would just like annoy people with. Like I'm like it's on repeat.
Oh,
In
dude.
my car, that song's on repeat.
Totally. Avenged Sevenfold covered it and just was like, okay, you kind of took the fun out of it, really. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah,
I'm not gonna do
don't
that.
even lift up that rock because I was just like, oh really? Okay. And I was just like, just took all the fun out of it. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, I'll go back to
There are some bands that you just can't cover.
yeah.
I
And
don't think
funk,
Bungle is coverable.
no.
I don't think, I mean, Faith No More is to a degree
That was
sometimes, but there's so much nuance in the way those guys play the song, you know? Skinny Puppy is another one. Like almost any cover I've ever heard of a Skinny Puppy song just is a letdown.
yeah.
Um, Sorry to some of my friends who have covered Skinny Puppy. I'm sorry, like you did your best.
You tried, but yeah,
You
yeah, you
did your
can't
fucking
capture.
best. Like, but it's just not something that can be done because it's like it's like those people making that music is why it's so good. Like you can't cover Warlock. You can't you just can't. Just
And that music video is what opened me up to so many movies where I'm just like, okay, what's all the clips that they used, and I want to watch every single one of those movies. And I think that kind of helped push me into okay, here's more 80s and more 70s horror that we're coming back around to talking about. But yeah, Warlock was definitely one of those. So,
yeah. Yeah. That like fascist jock itch,
mhm.
um, Hexon Exon, Rodent. Like, yeah, Rabies is such a great record. But like anything on like Last Rites, like Love in Vain, like there's so
Mhm.
many weird nuances to why that song works that like duplicating it is just impossible. Anything on Too Dark Park, like Spasmolytic, Shoreline Poison, uh like you just there's it's very much that band's song, you know um anyway, where we got off track, what were the fuck.
Yeah, no, we're good. I got to get back to all my questions. We start
Yeah.
jumping into like all these different things. Okay, so what would be your dream gear that you would love to buy and why? Or you own, you know what I'm saying? Dream gear.
um, I would like to expand my modular rig a bit more. I'm pretty good. It's got a couple sequencers, it's got a few drum triggers. It's pretty good for what it is. I've invested a fair amount of money in it, but in the case that I have, there like the top, there's two rows up at top. There's two rows and bottom, two rows at top, and the two rows up top, like the top row is only like half full, and then
Okay.
the top row is empty.
Oh,
And so I have a lot of space to expand it, and I would love to do that. And I would love to expand, get into a bigger studio space to where I can streamline things a bit more, especially as far as like my modular rig goes, because it's on a rack that I have to like roll over and like plug it into my patch bay. And streamlining that would be, uh, you know, so much better. I would love to have more hardware synthesizers too. Like right now, I only have a microKORG.
yeah.
That's like the only hardware synthesizer I have. Yep.
I always pull this out. Yep, 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 definitely.
That's the only hardware synth I have. I have MIDI controllers and I have my modular. So if there's something I'm not getting from MIDI or samples, or the microKORG, then I almost always default to the modular because the modular can sound completely different every fucking time I flip it on.
Who do you
You
go
know,
through to get your modulars? Are you Eurorack or are you some
I'm
different?
I'm a, yeah I have a Eurorack system, and I have stuff from all different companies like
Yeah, yeah.
IntelliGel. Most of what's in my rack is noise engineering.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I fucking love their stuff. I have all their weird names that like the Synca, I'm blanking on the names
That's
right
okay.
now,
No worries. Yeah.
but I have like their drum trigger one. I have three of their synth voice modules that are just so awesome. And then I have the IntelliGel Metropolis.
Mm-hmm.
That actually, a lot of the stuff that I have was built for me by an electrician friend who would order the kit versions of these, and then he would build them for me. So they're way cheaper if you can get them in a kit form, and then have somebody who knows what they're doing. And he would just basically charge me for the kit, no labor. And so I was getting a bunch of my modules very, very inexpensively for a while. But the IntelliGel Metropolis uses circuitry that is still under patent and license from Roland from the 80s because it's using it's using a Roland sequencer as its brain, but like how it actually routes things out is very much proprietary to IntelliGel. But their circuitry, like you can only buy it. You had to buy it as a whole, and it was like a $600 investment just for that sequencer. And I waited. I had that on back order for like almost a year before they finally got it in, and I could actually install it. And so when I finally got it, like, oh my god, so much shit opened up. And there's a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of that stuff on the same outcome. Like on the track 2 on Carcinogen Spite, there's like a little synth line that is from the Metropolis. A lot of the synth bass lines are from Metropolis. Um, but and back to your question, like how I could expand things, I would love to expand my modular rig more. I would love to have like a wall of Euro rack shit. That would be great. I would love to have a couple more 8 strings. I have 2 right now. I would love to have more. I have a 5-string Schecter bass in my studio. I would love to have like one more of those just as a backup. Um, I really would love to upgrade my guitar rig. I'm playing on a Carbon V3 right now, and I love the sound of it, but I would love to have a Marshall like JCM, you know, because I love that Godflesh sound. Not that I want to mimic his tone or anything, but I love the sound of Marshalls. They sound great. My cabinet that I have is a 412 that's a Marshall replica that was handmade by a dude who used to work for Marshall. And so I will never get rid of that thing because it's one of a kind and it sounds great. Um, yeah. So
Amazing.
those are the things I would want to upgrade the most.
Um, yeah, let me knock out one or two more questions. I'll let you go
Take your
here.
time, man. No, like no rush.
I've had some people where they're like, "Oh, I've only had this time and this time." I'm just like, "Okay."
No,
Yeah,
no,
so
no worries.
overstay your whatever you got going on. So,
It's Sunday, man. After this, I'm probably just gonna pour a glass of wine and read a book.
what's your most memorable concert that you attended as a fan?
Damn. Let me think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Um, some of my best memories are at Nine Inch Nails, Skinny Puppy, or Neurosis shows.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Skinny Puppy farewell show in December of 23 was huge for me. It was very emotional, and it was the end of an era. They played for almost 3 hours, and that was really, really, really big. I loved that show so much, and after I'd already seen them like 16 times, you know, but that one will stand out in my memory forever. Um, Other than that, when Neurosis did their anniversary shows in 2015, they did 3 nights at Great American Music Hall in San Francisco. I went to all 3 of those, and I had already seen them like 10 times up to that point, but every night was a different set list, and they played stuff I had not heard before from the early years, like stuff from Souls at Zero and Enemy of the Sun. I had never heard them play on stage before, and so those were very memorable nights for me. Rewinding it back a bit, even from that, seeing Neurosis also at Great American Music Hall, but a few years prior, I think it was 2004. Yeah, 2004. I still have the flyer for it. Was Neurosis was playing Great American Music Hall in San Francisco, and they had Made Out of Babies open, and it was their record release show technically because they had just put out their first album on Neurot Recordings,
Yeah.
2004. So it was Made Out of Babies, Grails,
Ooh.
who I fucking love. I love Grails. That's one of my favorite bands to this day. Grails, Red Sparrows, who I
Oh,
also love, like
yeah.
saw them like 100 times, and then Neurosis. So Made Out of Babies, Grails, Red Sparrows, Neurosis. That show, one of my favorite shows of all time. Like so good. Every set just so inspiring, incredible. I even remember Julie Christmas coming and hanging out with me and my girlfriend at the time, drunk in the audience after their set, because she's like, I was so nervous just hanging out with us. And like everybody's like, no, you killed it. But and like her hanging out with us during like Grails and Red Sparrow set, I was like, this is so unreal. And now she's huge, and like her solo career is taken off, and I'm so stoked for her because her stuff is amazing. But that show 2004 was massive for me. Um, so picking one
Yeah, if,
one
yeah. If you can, don't worry. I just like hearing people's stories about how they got to see a show and it just blew their fucking minds. I get it.
That is one of the big ones. That show with Neurosis, Grails, Red Sparrows, and Made Out of Babies. That was a huge one. Other than that, when Nine Inch Nails was initially gonna say goodbye and they did their fake farewell tour in 2009, I got to catch them at the Wiltern
Mhm.
uh, for the last show of that run, and they played for like 3.5 hours, and it
Killed
was just like it's like it would be easier to name the songs they didn't play,
it. Yeah,
right? Like it was so cool. Like even Dillinger Escape Plan came out and played March of the Pigs and Wish with them.
I
Like
loved
the
it.
whole band came out on stage and became this massive band on stage.
I can't
Like
believe you got to see that live. I'm so jealous, dude.
yeah, it was nuts. It was really really nuts. That was a great show. And so, like I have the poster for it on my wall, and like that was a big show. Um so there's a few.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, because I saw, let's see, Nine Inch Nails. I mean, I live in St. Louis, so it
I
was
was gonna ask. Yeah.
Nine Inch Nails, Queens of the Stone Age. That was the first time I got to see them live. Fucking killed it. I think it was it Autolux or
Oh yeah.
a place to bury the strangers? Am I
Place to
saying?
Bury Strangers.
Yeah. So
I
they
saw
were
Autolux play with Nine Inch Nails one time. Yeah,
yeah,
Autolux is good.
yeah, Autolux is amazing. And Place to Bury the Strangers. Their new album Synthesizer is fantastic. So
I'll have to get more caught up with them.
yeah, check them out. It's good. Great
This whole last year, finishing our record and putting it out and doing the videos and everything, I like found myself not really listening to that much new music. Like I any chance I had to like be less stimulated. So that's why I got back into reading fiction again and just
sound.
like quiet reading books and then a movie on in the evening. So I'll have to get back caught up with A Place to Bury Strangers.
A good one. And I mean, before the conspiracy, I saw Mindless Self Indulgence so many times live, and it was just like, oh man, like they were just their energy was great. Jimmy was great, but
Mm.
I mean, hearing what's been going on with them, I was just like, oh man,
Yeah, dude's a creep.
yeah, oh man, it just bummed me
Dude's
out.
a creep.
Instead of like giving us like what's going on, what's the like he just lives in New Zealand and just shut everything down without any sort of like, hey, what give us something. No, just completely
Oh,
just ghosted all the fans,
run
nothing.
and hide.
Broke
Yeah,
my
he's
heart.
like, I'm just gonna run and hide.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
all. It broke my heart, dude.
yeah,
So
no, I get what you mean. Like that's how it was. I mean, it's not quite as bad with Scott Kelly of Neurosis, but when
yeah,
that news came out about him like being like really weird with his whole family and him not returning anyone's calls from Neurosis, I'm just like that. I was really upset
breaks your
about
heart.
it because it was like what a way to watch one of your favorite bands just kind of like fade out. Like somebody dying or something like that is one thing, but like you just like lost your cool and just completely dissociated from everyone. Like, yeah, it's just upsetting.
It
But
breaks your heart.
him just dodging accountability like that and going running and hiding to another country. It's like, oh man, come on.
Bum me out, dude. Bum me out.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find some not so generic, but oh, most bizarre inspiration for a song that you've ever had. Something that's like, oh, I saw a flower and it made me want to write a song. What would be your most bizarre source of inspiration, would you say?
Wow. Now I'm having to like think about like my own songs and like where they came from. Um, shit. There's a couple instances of us, taking inspiration. I know like it's not that weird for bands to do this, especially industrial bands, but like taking inspiration from movies and whatnot. We have a song that we've never played live called Cartel Blues, which was inspired by Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I'm
Oh,
basically like, I'm like writing from the perspective of someone who knows Walter White and is kind of like assessing his decline into
madness.
criminal mass madness. Yeah. And then we have another song called Generating Keys that we play live all the time that was inspired by Mr. Robot. I don't know if you ever watched the
Yep.
show Mr.
Yep.
Robot.
Oh, yeah. 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 Yeah.
You watched
Yep.
that? Did you
Yeah.
finish the whole series?
Not
Yeah.
yet. No, no. It's one of those I come and go to. I need to just buck down, but I just get so easily distracted by other things that that's one of those I'll probably rewatch and just let it play out.
Yeah. Honestly, start it from the beginning and stay on it. And then little pro tip from a fan. At the end of each season, when the last episode is rolling its credits, don't just skip. Watch the end credits because there's a post credit scene at the end of each season.
Wow.
Except for season four. Season four, it's like it's done. But there's a post credit scene, and watching it consecutively and consistently, you will see that everything they set up from season one, they had planned out through to season. Like it was so well planned out. There are things that get set up in season one that do not pay off until season four, and it is not contrived. It's exactly what Sam Esmail had planned the whole time. And so that show was really, really inspiring to me and Jack. And so I wrote Generating Keys about it. And because he's a coder, he helped me with the lyric video for it. And he actually like wrote the code that you see in the lyric video. Like he wrote that. Like he actually like created the script for the lyric video and everything. So we're, hugely inspired by that one. So that's not that weird. But I guess that's, like a little different from how some of our other songs have been inspired. Um, Retail Therapy is one, and then Clinically Proven is another one. Clinically Proven, I just got like I'm always so disgusted by like pharmaceutical commercials. Like
Yeah.
we're the only country in the world that has like, commercials for drugs, and like these pharmaceutical commercials that stretch on for like 5 fucking minutes, you know? And, to a lesser extent, the same mentality of those commercials has, is translated to like skin creams and stuff like that. And so like the term clinically proven,
Doesn't.
like it's someone who's like a child of science, and like Jack is a scientist, and like the term clinically proven doesn't mean shit. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean like you can say anything you want is clinically proven, and they don't have to back it up with any actual science. So, that is sort of a spiritual cousin to the song Retail Therapy, where retail therapy is all about, mindless consumerism and, just like feeding useless products down your throat. I don't know if you watched the video for that one,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like that's, we even have like a little Easter egg for clinically proven in that video. Like the weight loss milkshake thing says clinically proven to do absolutely nothing on it, and like, so
Go back and
the,
rewatch that. I gotta catch that. That's so cool.
it's you blink and you miss it kind of thing. It's very hidden, but like that, those two songs kind of, even though they're on separate releases, they kind of came from the same concept of like being just disgusted with how things are forced upon you in American culture, like the way things are sold to you. So, I mean, I guess that's not even that weird of a place to, get inspiration for a song, but that's where we got those. And I think that was like those two songs kind of display our sense of humor a little bit.
Get it. That's
So,
so. Yeah, I'll do one last question. Do you have any advice for anybody who's, working on music, wanting to be an artist? What would be your main advice to tell them to kind of keep them going or to, get them into the music scene?
like you said before, keep going, don't stop. The more you work on something, and this is back to, the mantras of David Lynch, just keep doing the thing. If you just keep doing the thing, whatever the thing is, you will get better and better at it. Also, try to hold yourself to a high standard. I see there's too much shortcuts these days. There's too many people taking like, lazy shortcuts. The AI thing, don't even get me fucking started
Oh,
on it.
dude.
I get really turned off, and in most cases I will unfollow bands and club promoters if they're, pushing AI flyers out there. Like I hate that shit.
So lazy.
So that's another conversation
Yeah.
entirely. Do the thing, get good at it, hold yourself to a standard, and like constantly criticize yourself without shitting on yourself.
Thank you.
Uh,
Yep.
like, there's too much comparison going on in the age of social media, where like, oh, my stuff doesn't sound as good as this. It's like, well, you're not that person. Like it's never going to sound like that. So you need to do the best you can with your own creative voice, whether it be your actual singing voice or just like how you play music, how you produce music. You need to like obviously look to the people that you respect who make the art that you like as an example of like that level of quality. and aspire to it, but don't lose sight of like, your journey to find your own voice. So just keep doing the thing and hold yourself to a high standard, like the same standards that they hold themselves to. And as far as getting in the music industry, it really is the same statement. Just keep doing the thing. Like we're on social media as a necessity, but I personally don't like it. I'm inherently a rather private person, and I don't like sharing personal details about my life or any of the band members' lives or any of that kind of stuff. Um, but we do it as a necessity. We post when we have like shows, we post when we do stuff like that. So trying to get on good shows and just trying to make friends with people whose work you respect, without being a punisher or being, a sycophantic fanboy or any of that kind of stuff, just like being genuinely appreciative of the community, contributing to the community,
Yeah.
like promoting the shows, really promoting the shows that you're getting added onto. If you get on a good show, like promote it, and don't do it, in like some cheap, like, shortcut kind of way,
I
really
found
put the work into it, like learn how to edit video, learn how to shoot video, um, learn how to light your stuff, and if you don't know enough about mixing, find somebody who does, who's willing to work with you and get your stuff to a level of quality, like standards, but just keep doing the thing and keep doing the thing until, you're as good at it as you want to be for that point, and then push yourself even further. Just keep going. Don't stop. We are just playing as many shows as we can right now, as many good shows as we can. Because that's one thing Daniel Disma from Church of the Eighth Day said to me when we first started. You guys don't need to be playing a lot of shows. You need to be playing a lot of good shows. And so if the good shows aren't coming, don't take them, you know. And so we turned down a lot of things, We like doing smaller shows with bands that we've never heard of, because you never know when you're going to make a new friend that like just is like extremely talented, you know. But and that just all comes back to keep doing the thing, just do it and do it until, until you're there, and you before you realize it, like your people are like listening to your records and telling you how much they like your stuff, so just don't stop. That's it.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you again so much, man. I really appreciate your time, dude. You
Thanks,
take
man. Again, sorry about the scheduling snafu.
That's
It's
why
been
I keep the whole day open. Just be like, all right, just to be flexible. That's all. So we're good, man.
man. It was
Thank
really
you.
good talking to you. Sounds like we would be homies if we lived closer.
Absolutely, dude. I would give anything to go. Dude, I have talked to so many people in LA where it's like, dude, if I was there, it would just be like, it would just be a hang. It'd be so cool.
Mhm.
Maybe in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah, we've got great friends out here. We got great friends in Texas. And then Mutant from Texas just moved out to LA, so like we're hoping to hang out with him more because he's a cool dude.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you heard Dread Risks from Texas, but you should definitely check out Dread Risks. Those
Yeah.
guys are great.
I'll look them
Um,
up. Absolutely.
really good friends of ours. But like we've managed to be friends with them, and they're in Texas, they're in Austin. But they're like I talk to Eric from Dread Risks like once a week. Like, or almost every day practically through a text. But sometimes we have like FaceTime chats. So keep the line of communication open, and let's talk more, and hopefully we can hang in LA sometime, or
Yeah.
sometime if we go to St. Louis and play, we'd
It'd be
we'd
great,
love to
man.
hang with you there.
Sounds great, dude. All right, take it
All
easy.
right, man. Take care. Have a good Sunday.